Okay, so now I'm going to show my thigh, or my, not my thigh, my calf with the sugar. And my calf doesn't have a ton of hair, so I'm just putting on my glove here and getting some sugar, which the sugar bowl is right behind the camera here. Alright. And you want to put sugar on against the hair growth, which is a little bit different than, well, it's the complete opposite of waxing. And you can see how just nice that comes out. You want to make sure you powder the skin first, and that will keep the sugar from pulling the skin as much. Plus it really does help the sugar adhere to the hair. I find that when I don't use powder, it doesn't pull the hair as well. And it's usually a reminder if I see the hair's not coming out, I'm like, oh, did I forget powder? Let me see that part. Some little hairs around the ankle. The ankles tend to always be the most tender spot for people, around the ankles. Everybody sort of has their own sensitivities on their legs, but I would say that for the most part ankles are the most tender. So the back of my legs, and this is pretty common, my hair grows completely sideways. So that's why I'm putting it on against and then pulling this way. Alright. You can see how quick that is too. I'm going to grab a little more sugar. And see the top here. You don't have to be in a speed race either when you're putting on the sugar, because as you're putting it on, it kind of molds onto those hairs, and it's going to do a better job grabbing more hairs out, which saves you time of reapplying and reapplying if you're trying to put it on super, super fast. So that was one thing that I had to learn with sugar, is just to take my time, not be in a rush, and before you know it, you're hairless. You're always going to get a little bit better result if you mold a couple times. And when I'm doing legs and backs, I usually do use a little more pressure, but you don't need to use a lot of pressure. And if the wax is a completely fresh ball, it'll go on softer, so then you wouldn't use much pressure at all. If you start feeling like the sugar's getting all over your hand, don't really worry about it. Just keep putting it on yourself, or if you're working on a friend or a customer. Because once you start trying to have control of it in your hand, you just end up making more of a mess. So just put it on their body and flick it off, and it's not always pretty, as you can see. You know, it's all over my hand, but doesn't mean you don't have control of it. I don't know if you can see there. And this is always kind of a tricky spot on yourself to see, just because it's sort of your blind spot. And one of the things you'll find too with sugar, I notice it especially on larger areas like legs and backs, it turns white, and that's somewhat due to the powder, but it's really mostly the dead skin cells, because it does exfoliate those dead skin cells as you're sugaring the hair. And since I haven't shaved in a while, I have used my exfoliation gloves, but it's been a few days, so I'm sure I have a good buildup of dead skin cells again. I don't think you can see that. So you could get a fresh ball or just add more softer stuff to this. I'm just going to try adding some softer stuff to this, just to do the knee. And let's see, with sugar I was just thinking, like, it does help to have the skin flat. Yeah, I was just going to see if I can flick it off. If you're having a hard time getting it off your knee, just tighten up your knee, bend it, pull the skin, and then if it starts to get stuck, don't keep remolding and remolding and remolding. Just let it sit there and come back to it later. And it's so much gentler on the skin than waxing. Like, my skin it's not red, it's not hurting. You can't even hardly tell that anything has happened. Alright, there's one thigh down.